Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing another book review. Today we've got something awesome, and that is The Flight of the Eisenstein. This is book 4 in the Warhammer Horus Heresy novel series. I did a video on the Warhammer Horus Heresy. I think maybe it was just the first book, maybe it was the first trilogy, I don't really remember, but I did a review of some Warhammer novel over the summer. I read those and I really enjoyed it, and I hadn't picked up any more of it until last month, back in January, when I continued with Flight of the Eisenstein, and that's what I'm here to do today, give you guys my review. Yeah, that's really all there is to it. I'm not going to beat around the bush too much. I hope you guys all enjoy the video. Without further ado, let's get into it. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Horus Heresy and Warhammer, there's a lot to get into, but basically the Horus Heresy follows the corruption and downfall of the Imperium, and hence the name of the series. The main focal point is one of the Emperor's 20 sons named Horus. He's like the favored son, and he falls to the powers of chaos, and Horus sort of brings some of his other brothers together as traitors to the Imperium, and there's like probably the biggest war in the recent Warhammer histories. But anyway, that's sort of the gist. It's a story of corruption and rebellion against the imperial truth. Yeah, anyway, so the first 3 books sort of brings you close to Horus through what they call the Mournival, and the Mournival are like Horus's 4 most trusted advisors, I would say, being Garviel Loken as one of the Astartes, one of the elite warriors, Torgaden, Abaddon, and then Little Horus Aximen. Those are the 4 Astartes that are closest to him, and we follow mainly Garviel Loken, and we also get some insight into characters called Remembrancers, which the Remembrancers are like humans that are taking part in the arts. They're journaling, they're painting, and doing all sorts of different artistic things that are supposed to record the war and what's going on, and what they call, well, prior to the actual heresy, I'm pretty sure it's called the Unification Wars, where they're bringing all of these lost civilizations back into the Imperium of Man. And all these remembrancers, these humans, are supposed to create art around it and, just record everything that's happening. And so there are a few characters that are, we see the story through their point of view too, which at first wasn't interesting, but then some of those characters actually become super interesting. So that's just sort of a gist of like the first book, or first 3 books, what I call like the first trilogy, because those 3 books are like one kind of cohesive story. And in many ways, this 4th book is a bit of a spin-off of those, of really the 3rd book, Galaxy in Flames, as parts of the story take place before Galaxy in Flames, during, and after, but through the point of view of a character named Nathaniel Garrow. And one of the biggest events that happens, sort of the kicking off point of the Horus Heresy, is the Istvan III massacre. Now, Istvan III is a planet, part of the Istvan system, so there's like Istvan V, for example, which is another big important event that happens a little bit later on, but the event at Istvan III is sort of the first initial kicking off point, and that's sort of where the first 3 books are leading up to, and what this book covers, and it shows the aftermath of. So in the first, or I keep saying the first 3 books, but really Galaxy in Flames, at the end, we sort of see Istvan III massacre wrap up. And it sort of leaves off on a cliffhanger. We don't see what happens, and that's where this book picks up. Or not picks up, but parts of it carry on with that. And what the Istvan III massacre is essentially Horus and some of his brothers go to this planet called Istvan, and they send specific warriors there who they know are going to be loyal to the Emperor and the Emperor alone, and won't roll with their plans of treachery. And they send them to this planet, just legions, and when I say legions, but just basically a large army and multiple armies of loyal warriors that they send basically down there to die, because they bombard the planet from orbit in what they call an exterminatus, which just a complete orbital extermination of the planet. They nuke it and virus bomb the whole planet, just kill every living organism on the planet. So they're sending all of their loyalists there to die, unbeknownst to the loyalist, of course. So Nathaniel Garrow is a loyal warrior who was originally supposed to be sent down there. He is a part of a legion called the Death Guard, with their Primarch, their leader, Mortarion, who is one of Horus's brothers, who also turns traitor. So he's a loyalist of a traitor legion, but he doesn't get sent down there, and when he learns of this treachery, he devises a plan to dip out of there and relay this message to the Emperor across the galaxy to let him know that his sons are planning some shit against him. And if you know anything about Warhammer, one of the biggest things is that these Astartes and the Primarchs are undyingly loyal to the Emperor and to their Primarchs, and to each other even. So the idea of betrayal among the legions is really unthinkable and incomprehensible to the Astartes. But, they're corrupted by chaos, so anything is possible at this point. And a large part of this book, and about these books, is the Astartes coming to terms with the fact that they have to fight their former brothers and comrades, and which is again an act that was previously unthinkable. So it's brother on brother war, pretty much. But yeah, this book mainly focuses on we saw this shit happen from orbit, because again, Garrow was supposed to be sent down there, but through some events that happened in the book, he saw unfit to go down there and fight. So they're up there in the ship, and they're looking down, and they see all their brothers getting annihilated pretty much, and they're like, oh shit, stuff is going down. And so, they're unsure of themselves because they're about to betray their Primarch, even though that their Primarch is doing the wrong thing. And there's so much confusion and disbelief of what's happening. But Garrow, sticks to his guts and his belief in the Imperium, and dips out of there. And so this really follows their whole escapades through the warp, which is how they get from point A to point B. The best way I can explain the warp is basically an eldritch dimension where you're able to travel through space faster. You're able to open up a portal and distance inside this dimension, as long as you know how to navigate it, sort of. You travel less distance in this dimension than you do in what they call real space. It's like the real world. So, like, for example, like in Minecraft. And if for those of you who've played it, maybe you know, you have the nether portals, and you go into the nether portal, and it's like hell, right? You go in there, but in Minecraft, the way it works is a certain number of blocks inside the nether is equivalent to a greater distance in the overworld. So you can actually travel a shorter distance in the nether and then exit, and then be much further apart from when you entered in the overworld. It's sort of a similar concept in Warhammer with the warp. And because the galaxy is so vast, that's how they use it to travel from point A to point B. But because this is a very dangerous hellscape dimension full of, you know, eldritch beings and chaos gods, it's very Lovecraftian, which is another reason why I love Warhammer, is because it does play on those cosmic horror aspects. They have to fight off like chaos demons and like shit like that, so it's pretty sick. And then they get stranded in the warp. It's just a very harrowing journey to relay this message to the rest of the Imperium that on the other side of the galaxy they're about to get absolutely butt fucked. Like everything's about to come crashing down. And yeah, I'm not gonna spoil a whole lot, but that's sort of the gist of what happens. What I do like about this book though, and I see some people that don't like this aspect of it, but it does sort of replay events from that last book, that third book, Galaxy in Flames. We see some of the characters. We see Garvia Loken and a character named Saul Tarvitz, who's another Astartes of the Emperor's Children Legion, another one of the traitor legions, but he's another loyalist. Another one of my favorite characters. But we see, you know, interactions that we saw in Galaxy in Flames between characters. Now we see the same interactions in this book, but from the point of view of Garrow, and so we get his sort of inner monologue as well, and we see the same events play out, but just the other side of the coin. So, you know, a lot of people, for that portion of the book that basically replays Galaxy in Flames, a lot of people didn't like that, and I can see why. If you're, you know, reading the books like back to back to back to back, I can understand how that might be a bit redundant and repetitive and unenjoyable. But me, I finished Galaxy in Flames like way back in August of 2024. It's, you know, as I was reading this, it was the middle of January of 2025. So it was several months between novels. And so actually for me, it was pretty refreshing. And I did enjoy being able to go back and see some of those familiar faces like Garvia Loken, who's my favorite character, and characters like Euphrates Keeler, which she also plays an important role in this book. She's one of the Remembrancers. I won't go into spoilers there because she's a very important character. But sort of that replaying events was actually helpful for me to get back into the novels and be familiar with what's actually going on. And that was something I was scared of returning to this, is that I wouldn't remember certain characters or some specifics that were important. Yeah, no, that helped a lot. Yeah, and another part that I like is that these Warhammer novels are short and sweet. Like, if I really put 100% effort into it, I could read these over a week. Like, they're little mass market paperbacks. Of course, you can get them in other sizes and hardcover, but a lot of them are very expensive and out of print. But these mass markets, yeah, are usually like 400, 500 pages long. So they're week-long reads for me personally with my reading speed. So they're just short and sweet as sort of palate cleansers. And I'll go into a more in depth in a video that I plan on making later on of why I'm so fascinated with Warhammer in particular and the way that it makes me feel personally. But they're just really refreshing palate cleansers, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. The character of Garrow was just so awesome in seeing, you know, his inner conflict and just all of the doubt surrounding his legion, like the loyalists that are left and their disbelief, and just in essence all of the chaos that's happening. Just seeing how they handle it and persevere, and especially with the introduction of Euphrates Keeler, her relationship with Garrow, I absolutely loved. Just, you know, based off of loyalty to the Emperor, and she's sort of his guardian angel in a way, a guiding light for Garrow, which I thought it was kind of sweet. I really enjoyed that character dynamic. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I don't want to go into too many spoilers and just sort of giving you guys the gist and all that, but it's an amazing book. If you've read the first 3 books in the series, which I think are mandatory reading for the Horus Heresy, it's such a large series that you can kind of jump around and read specific stories about specific characters or legions or groups of characters or events and whatnot, certain battles. So, you know, it's 60 books long, but most of it doesn't actually matter. If you want my personal opinion, you don't have to read all 60 books. The first 3 novels I'd say are mandatory reading just because they're fantastic, and they tell just that initial downfall plot, you know, the kicking off point to it all in a very cohesive story. This, I'm hesitant to say, is also sort of mandatory reading, just because it directly plays off of the mandatory stuff, those first 3 books. And if you're left wondering, well, if you read Galaxy in Flames and are left wondering, well, where do we go from here? This gives you a good idea, because, you know, that message has got to be relayed to somebody, you know, all the way across the galaxy, and see what happens, how different parties react, and it sort of answers the where do we go from here. So yeah, I personally think it's sort of mandatory. I guess you don't really have to read it, but it's pretty important. And why wouldn't you? I mean, Garrow is badass, and yeah, if you just want to read more about Euphrates Keeler, I'd say Garrow and Keeler are probably the 2 most important characters in this book. And after reading the first 3 books, I was so attached to those characters that were introduced that I just wanted more of them, you know? So yeah, there's a lot of there's a few cameos from characters from the first 3 books that I enjoyed revisiting, those characters that I liked a lot when I first read it. And it also progresses the plot of the overall story of the Horus Heresy as well. So yeah, guys, that is about it for my review of The Flight of the Eisenstein. Again, amazing novel. I highly recommend that if you ever have a lick of interest in Warhammer, that you read these novels. They're fantastic. They're surprisingly well written. I don't mean that in like a condescending way, but I think with like media tie-in fiction, I always kind of shrugged it off because there are a lot of pretty bad ones, but the Horus Heresy stuff, these are top-notch authors, honestly. The prose is fantastic, they're quick reads, and the story and characters are just amazing. So I highly recommend these books, and yeah, take my word for it, they're fantastic. Anyways, guys, it's going to be about it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed my little review. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, maybe subscribe if you feel like it, no pressure. And yeah, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.